called a bit of an audible today. We were going to look into operations and how to working with buyers, keeping that business in escrow and in the pipelines. Instead, I've invited a friend of mine, Mo, who owns multiple title company. He has about 20 offices in the Northern Virginia, DC metro area, and certainly more of an expert and more informed on title than probably any of us on this call. So Mo was nice enough to volunteer his time to be here to kind of give us an idea of what he's seeing in his market and how you might be able to, I guess, force innovate in your own markets. If you have deals held up that aren't closing, maybe you can get some ideas here. So Mo's, I think it's definitely a good time for inspiration, and Mo has a very interesting and inspirational story. So Mo, welcome to Shift Happens. Well, that's awkward. I think he just got kicked out. Hey Mo, I think you're back. You're back on now.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So share with everybody kind of what your background is. You've got a really interesting story, really inspiring story, and just let everybody know who you are and why you're here. And guys, we'll kind of go through this and we'll talk back and forth. If you have any questions, please put those in the comments or the comments bar or in the Q&A, and we'll talk a little bit about the state of the market and what's going on, and then we can get to your questions. So Mo, over to you.
Thank you, Chad, for having me. It's a pleasure. My story, my name is Mo Choumil. I'm the founder and CEO of ATG Title. We have multiple locations in the DC metro area, and we're licensed to do business in DC, Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, and Florida. My story, I grew up in Morocco, Casablanca, Morocco. I came to the US right after high school. I went to college at George Mason University, and after college, I was working in the restaurant business, and I really stumbled into the real estate business. One of my clients had an abstract or title search company, and recruited me to go and work for him about 25 years ago. And just did that for a few years, and I branched out and started my own abstract company for about 2 to 3 years. And in 2001, I launched ATG Title. That was a natural progression. We've grown, and throughout the years. In 2008, we crashed, just like everybody else in the real estate business. Then we recovered from that, and nearly last year was our record year for us. Everything was going full cylinder, and it's been a great ride. And all of a sudden, we got times change so fast. Yeah. And we're here to assist any questions. And my want to add value to kind of add positivity and make sure let you all know that business is still as usual. I mean, it's not as from back end is a lot of moving pieces, and we're all working remotely and doing whatever we can to keep everybody safe and offering different ways, alternative ways to still conduct closing through either digital closing like remote online closing, or drive-by, or any way we can do to continue doing business and make sure transactions happen and close.
Yeah. So Mo, you're in DC, Virginia, and Maryland, and do you have a Florida office too?
We do business in Florida. We have a satellite office too.
Yeah. So let's talk about the flow of business 3 weeks ago, how it was like to close a deal versus today. And I know there are people around the country that have a lot of stuff falling out. There's courthouses that won't record, and I mean, tell everybody what you're seeing across your footprint. I mean, is it as bad as some people say? Like, how does your market compare? Just so they can see how
we've seen is a spike in refinance. Obviously, the rates are very low, so people will take advantage of the opportunity. And I think the resale market is flattened out. I mean, so far we've had maybe 1 or 2 cancellations as far as closing are concerned, but people start closing transactions. We just kind of we've been very good at messaging, like, hey, we're open. Hey, we have we provide social distance in our office. We have a skeleton crew working in the office just to handle closings, but the whole operation is done remotely. We've been very lucky to our operations is all done in the clouds, and literally about 10 days ago, everybody just shifted, moved home, and started working from home. So make sure we want to keep our people safe, first of all, and make sure they're comfortable to do the work and continue transactions. And we want to make sure customers, clients, and realtors are comfortable If they come to our offices, we sanitize conference rooms before and after every closing. We provide new pens for every closing. We've done lately yesterday. We've done a couple drive-bys. People came to the parking lot. We gave them documents. They signed them, and we took them inside. It was just that's what made them comfortable. We offered that as an option, and I've seen a lot of companies doing that around the U.S. And the other option is it's called a RON, Remote Online Notary. Virginia was the first state to pass that bill. Basically, you can do a remote video closing, and it's acknowledged as a full legit notary. And Senator Warner from Virginia is trying to pass an emergency bill to make RON, or remote online notary, as a national standard to make it to ensure transactions are still happening.
Where's that standing?
I've seen a lot of.
Where is that at, Mo?
Right now, it's any day. Right now, so far, about 55% of the states do recognize Iran. The rest of them have been slowly moving, but I think this is gonna speed up. But some states, like New Jersey and New York, they implemented like an emergency bill to allow Iran to exist. So like some states are doing it on their own, but the House trying to pass a bill as well to make it at a national level. It's about time.
There's a whole lot of bad news. It's not hard to find bad news right now if you just look anywhere. But there's also a lot of silver linings in this. And when this, 2 weeks ago, I said one of the silver linings that we're going to find here is, I've largely, built and operated my companies remotely. Because like you guys see, I travel all the time, and I'm rarely ever in a single place. So I feel like I was an early adopter of a lot of tools and a lot of things to just virtually run a business. But most people, find a lot of comfort in not doing that and having roots in their community. But we don't really have that as an option. So I think one of the neat side effects of what we're going through right now is you're going to see forced innovation at the government level, at private level, public level. And you're going to see more efficiencies. One of the things I'm really interested in seeing is do we snap back to that old version when people realize the efficiencies and the cost effectiveness of being able to do things remotely? Like, do you think that will be the new norm? And I'm curious, Mo, like of all the closings you guys have done, let's just say in the last week, what would you say as a percentage have been e-settlements versus more traditional?
So far, it's been probably 95% was a traditional way of doing things. About 5%, doing e-notary or e-closing. There's a lot of moving pieces. Like lenders have to approve it, but as of last week, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac just said that they will acknowledge and buy any mortgage secondary marketing if it's done with e-closing. So they're blessed in e-closing. This was a huge piece. Lenders have to kind of allow it. That was the biggest thing.
And I saw that they also opened up.
I think
they broadened their rules on automated appraisals too, right?
That too, yeah. They've everybody from our insurance underwriters, like title insurance underwriters, have been very helpful and very open-minded. As you know, a lot of courthouses, some may be closed, some may be kind of working short hours, or so they've been allowing title companies to provide gap coverage. Basically, you don't have to be on record to fund. You can fund then record later. So it's very important to make sure transactions are happening. So and everybody's been working together. Like, I mean, with all the negativity, I mean, from underwriters, from the feds, from Fannie Mae, everybody working together to kind of we don't want real estate to crash. We want to kind of continue, make sure transactions are happening, make sure there's confidence in the markets. Deals are happening.
Yep. And so you said Mark Warner had introduced a bill, and that's being rushed through. I mean, you think that's going to be pushed into law in the next few days then?
I think so. I don't see why not, because ALTA, American Land Title Association, MBA, the Mortgage Banker Association, and NAR, they're all kind of supporting it and they're pushing for it. So I'm trying to get on my laptop so I can share some links, like some for you guys. But I can everybody can help by reaching to the senators and I kind of recommend passing the bill. I'm pretty sure it'll pass, but the more I know the Senate and the House had a bigger fish to fry last week or so with passing that $2 trillion bill. So I think it will pass. I don't see I think there's no going back to the old ways.
Yeah, I
Just
think so too. I mean, obviously, we have to look at, automation will take away jobs. And I think a big reason that most places weren't early adopters is the system works, right? And it's not
yeah.
broken, and it takes jobs from clerks. It takes court jobs. So that's something like in the coming unemployment environment that we're going to be in. I think that's going to be less of a concern, and that's like, how do we get things done, period, because we can't afford to pay everyone,
But
or those people can't come back to work. So I think
but
that
you got to
we'll look back
remember
at this and be like,
governments. Yeah, the governments need income. I mean, real estate is every transaction that closes, that's a revenue to the state or the county. That's a
exactly.
huge
And I
revenue.
mean, the worst thing that any government could do at any level would be to freeze settlements of real estate, like, because that there's such a calamity would come behind that. So I think that's what I meant by forced innovation. Like, this is gonna be, uh, put in place out of, sheer necessity. But I think it's a good thing for our industry. I think that it'll bring a lot of efficiency, and I think we'll look back on this and go, "Wow, do you remember how we used to do it before 2020?" Like,
Yeah,
this will
yeah,
become a milestone in all of our careers, I'm sure.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, besides the disruption in the norm, I mean, I'm personally welcoming the changes. They're for the positive. I mean, like, they've been governments and states and counties been kind of dragging their feet and passing these measures, but I just think it's about time. There's a lot of efficiency and say. I mean, the consumer can save a lot of money. Like when lender, like with as far as post closing, when the loan closes, there's so many hands touching the documents from title
Yeah.
companies to lender. I mean, once you do digital closing, I mean, everything is done. The QC is done on the spot, 100% accurate documents. Then doesn't touch any more hands. It saves us money, saves lenders money, and I don't see why now we can't pass that money through to the consumer, from title companies to lenders to real estate agents.
I think where we're headed, this is the next generation of closings, and I would be interested. I don't think you and I have ever talked about this. When I first read the white paper on Ethereum, the cryptocurrency, and when I
Yeah,
first started studying blockchain technology, it's easy to imagine if you could get all of the court records into blockchain, and then you can get, all the consumer information. Like, literally, the next generation of title could literally be just like, hey Mo, do you want to buy my house? Great, let's agree on a price. Pull out your phone, and everything
yeah,
happens almost, in a matter of seconds. And I think eventually it might be at the end of our careers. I don't think that's happening in the next 10 years, but I think eventually we'll see even more efficiency from all those hands and all those participants in a closing. I think eventually you'll see that in some sort of a blockchain where you have a ledger and you can almost instantaneously, close everything. Um, Mo, I think, we've got a mix of real estate investors and real estate agents and brokers on here. And I think that, certainly I haven't seen anything in the comments so far, but I think some of you guys are certainly in areas where you can't get a closing right now, or even if e-settlement is allowed, if e-notarization is allowed, maybe your title company is not doing it. So I'd like to ask, Mo, what's your best advice if someone is in one of these smaller, kind of less tech savvy markets, and they've got deals that they need to they need to push through. Everybody's still engaged in the transaction, but the title company is the problem. Like, how do they find the right title company, that that has the ability to do the multiple, closing options like yours do?
yeah. I think that a lot of companies been. I'm talking to like local competitors here. Like people have been adapting. A lot of companies been adapting to accommodate closings. Um, um, Major markets. I'm not sure about small markets. If you're like in a very rural small area and the local attorney, local title companies that cannot help you, I'm glad. Please reach out to me. I can see what I can do to help you. We have access to title companies all throughout the U.S. through ALTA, our national association. I'll reach out to me and give you my email address, and I'll connect you with who I know that can help you. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure transactions happen. That's our goal, is want to make sure transactions still go through.
Perfect. And that's
And
that's what I was looking for. I'm sure, like,
yeah,
so it sounds like there's a network, and you can say,
yeah,
okay, of all these ones in Iowa, these are the ones that I know that are, more tech savvy and can do e-closings. So you have a resource like that?
I can definitely help through our national association. Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, and guys, we'll drop. I know some people are asking about links. We'll drop links we'll give you Mo's contact info and some links to anything that we reference. Jim Forsyth asked please briefly explain the legislation again. And Jim, we'll try to post if we can find the actual bill, we'll try to post that. But
Yeah,
essentially, a bill is proposed that it's basically going to speed up the approval process for electronic notarization and electronic settlement.
correct.
It's something that Virginia actually, I think Mark Warner initiated it here in 2012. I
Correct.
think that's right, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
So it's kind of old news in Virginia, but most states just haven't. Well, I won't say most. A number of states, I think there's 15 where it's fully adopted and written into law, and a lot of others are in process. But like my home state of West Virginia, they haven't even drafted They haven't even drafted a bill. They just haven't picked it up and found that it's anything important. But
Yep.
what happens when West Virginia closes their courthouses? Jim Justice has locked down the state. So how are they recording transactions? And I haven't been able to talk to anyone there right now that has deals in escrow. But this will fast track legislature to get everybody on a level playing field, so real estate transactions can continue, and you don't have a freeze in the market, which ultimately turns into a train wreck and a price correction. And affects, as Mo said, it affects government revenue as well.
I'm gonna put a link here. I just put a link for all the counties that are open and that are doing accepting e-recordings. I don't know if you all see in the chat.
Oh yeah, this is great. So guys, let me get a screen up here.
It gives you county by county.
Yeah, so this is hey Kat, can you see this okay? You see my screen okay?
Yep, I see it.
Yeah, so this is there's a map here. Mo dropped this link in the chat, so you guys can all go here and see. The good news is most people have at least put the wheels in motion, and we should be able to to get this into play relatively quickly. Let me jump back to Q&A here. So Barry asked, will be discussing script and role playing in this call? Probably not. I mean, Barry, if you have something you want to role play from a title perspective, we're happy to do that. This was, we were gonna look at kind of operations and how to prepare your business, to go into this environment. But Mo was generous enough to let us borrow his expertise. So I will ask this: if anybody here, is anybody having trouble getting deals closed, like stuff you have in escrow? What are your struggles? Anyone that wants to share, or anybody have any questions for Mo? We don't have anybody in the queue right now. And it looks like Kat shared this, but Susan Brand mentioned in the Facebook live stream, Florida has already passed a law to allow RONs, and that was effective January 1st. So if you're in Florida, you should be good to go. All right. Kat, I am not looking at Facebook Live. Do you have any questions over there? Anything anybody wants to ask?
Just Susan shared that so far. I just sent the ALTA link over there, but if anyone is watching on Facebook and wants to ask the questions, I will be carrying it over to the Zoom as well.
Okay. And I'm just, Brian says, love the nature sounds. I think that was, Mo was walking outside. We heard all the birds. We could hear there was a northern mockingbird like following you. I imagine you were like Snow White, Mo. Colette, I'm going to come unmute you so we can have you join the conversation. So Mo, this is one of our probate experts from Houston, Texas, Colette Myers. Hey, Colette, you're on the air. Looks like you're muted on your side if you want to join. Okay. Well, I will read your question. She may not have a microphone. Colette, if you do have a microphone, you are unmuted. Colette said, how are VOEs going to affect closings for buyers that are hourly? I'm going to expose my ignorance. I don't understand the question. Mo, if you do.
I think VOE is verification of employment. It's more of it's a more legitimate
Oh,
question.
buyers on hourly wages. I understand now. Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Yeah. So, and this is something I think you briefly mentioned this. That's part of the Fannie Freddie push was to basically delay those out. So, can you talk about that again? Like how they're going to how do you close a deal if you can't get verification of employment right now? How are they handling that?
I'm not sure if I'm the appropriate person to answer this question. This is more of a mortgage loan officer, because we don't go to close until the lender approves the loan, and a VOE is part of the underwriting process before the loan is approved. So unfortunately, I cannot answer that question as I don't want to give wrong information. But
Okay.
I can reach out to one of my loan officers and get you that answer right now.
Yeah, and we can get you the right answer, Colette. So I have, and I can't source this, and I haven't actually dug in. I have heard from a residential lender that they're actually going to be making exceptions, and somehow they can go ahead and close the loan with a certain level of closing, and then they will, in order to make that that mortgage sellable in the secondary market, they'll eventually go back and reconcile with verification of employment. Obviously don't sound too educated because I haven't read that, but I did hear I've talked to a lot of folks, but one of the lenders that I spoke with didn't seem to be too concerned, thinking that would actually hold up closings. They do seem to have a solution, at least in process, for that. So we'll try to learn what we can about that and source more credible, give you some actual links to.
And hey, Chad, I just shared a new link from First American Title. This gives every county by county, they accept e-recordings and e-closings. It's like for individual counties throughout the whole United States.
Interesting. So when I click on it, it's just like a background image. Let me try to refresh that. Yeah, that link's not working for me, Mo.
Okay, let me, it's working here. Let me see if I can share my screen. I don't think it can. Let me text you the link.
Yeah.
You can share from your end. Let me text for you. Yes.
Kat, were you able to get that to open?
Trying.
All right. Yeah, it's doing the same thing. Okay, so we'll figure out what's happening here. The link Mo is trying to share with us is only showing up with a background image, and it says login, but there's no actual nothing on the page. So we'll get that out to you.
With the short link, when I just go to firstam.force.com, it says the site's down for maintenance.
Oh, how convenient. Yeah, so apparently that site's down right now, Mo.
Okay.
But all right, Colette did not have a microphone. Colette, hopefully that answered your question. We'll get you more credible information following this. Is Bill on Facebook, Kat? I see your question here.
Yeah, he's over on Facebook.
Okay, so I don't think I can unmute him, right? No. So Bill commented on Facebook, and Kat was shared it through. So Bill's in Northville, Michigan, near Detroit. Yesterday, I missed my first closing in 16 years as being in real estate full time. Our title companies require wet signatures on the warranty deed. and Alta statements. Closing or conference rooms were cleaned before and after each closing. Buyers and sellers each use separate rooms. Who dictates to the title company if they can have e-signatures? I believe that's the state government, right, Mo?
Yeah, correct. The state has to recognize RON, or remote online notary.
Yeah.
That's so they didn't close because of what again? Because
so it said they require wet signatures, so they didn't. Everything was cleaned. It sounds like they were, in prior closings, they were sanitizing each of the closing rooms and keeping buyers and sellers separate. But I guess something changed, and they require wet signatures, so he wasn't able to do the e-settlement.
okay.
What about anyone else? Anyone else having trouble? Bruce Hill, I know you're here. What are you guys seeing down in North Carolina? Let me find you. I saw you earlier. You can't hide, Bruce. Do you have a microphone?
Yeah, I've got a mic. I have. I shouldn't share that my in-laws came to town yesterday. I had to close the door so that their noise wouldn't overflow. North Carolina, man, it's all different. Right now, my county has a stay-at-home order, but it excludes real estate services. So anything real estate related, we can still do. We can still show, list, everything like that. The county next to us in Durham does not allow for showings, listings, anything. It allows for title services and appraisal services, and that's it.
But everything you have in escrow is moving forward, like title's still moving smoothly?
Title is still moving.
That's good.
But there won't be any new business in Durham. There still can be new business in Wake. In reality, I don't know, I've heard about a million people that have just been saying now's the time to get on the phone, do one-to-one communication, because there's not going to be a whole lot of business for the immediate foreseeable future. At least my county still does allow showings and listings though, but most do not. Most, I think we were the first county to do that out of 7 or 8 counties that put shelter-in-place orders. Most do not allow for real estate services.
Yeah. And we're going to talk more, we wanted to focus on the title aspect today because it's kind of timely for people who do have trouble closing and trying to figure out how to get that done.
Yeah.
Ruben, I did see your question about, have you guys already talked about the market conditions, what's next, how to prepare? So Ruben, I'll point you to the Wednesday session that we did. Most of what you're looking for is in that session. As far as how to prepare, we're really going to get into on Monday. We'll get into like how to prepare the buy side of your business. And I'm really looking at this in 3 tranches. So what do you do with your escrow, your pipeline, and your long-term prospecting? And I'll show you how to, keep people calm and moving forward in escrow. I'll show you how to keep your pipeline alive, keep people from bailing out, or not 100%, but as best we can. And then obviously long-term, what does this look like? What if we are still at home for another 4 to 6 weeks? Mathematics and biology tell us that we might be. But today we just, kind of improv'd and invited Mo here. But check out the recording from Wednesday. It's in our Facebook group. I think we emailed it out afterwards and everything. So a lot of what you're looking for is there. And then on Monday, we'll get really specific on, how to keep buyers that are already under contract, how to keep them calm, keep them keep them moving forward, and why that's a good idea and why it's not. And then we're also going to look at this we're going to be talking a lot about investors, guys, because right now, it's if the conventional market freezes, the best way to not only keep your business alive, but really make this one of the best years you've ever had is to connect with the cash. So we're going to look at how do you find the cash buyers? How do you figure out what they're looking for? And how to prevail in that marketplace. And then on Wednesday we'll get into the seller side of it, and there's a whole lot. It'll probably be a couple hours per session, but trying to get out what we can in a timely fashion right now. So that's what you can expect. So Ruben, that answered your question. Jim Forsyth, we'll review all the links and get you the right links whenever we wrap up. So Belinda Reese is actually in your she's in your area. Hey Belinda, you're on the air. Do you have a microphone? I guess not. All right. Belinda said, not having trouble with title. They're holding my upcoming closing at the office. Staggering when the buyer and seller come in by 30 minutes. So buyer in and out, and then the seller in and out with the agent, and the closer is doing the read of documents via computer with buyer and seller reading and signing document package in separate room. Problem was with HML getting cold feet and pulling funds from cash deal. Hard money lender, by the way, guys. Buyer got another hard money lender, and we are moving forward. So it sounds like Belinda has no title issues. She's having lender issues with hard money lenders, and I've heard that too. Mo, have you seen lenders back away from the table in the last week or so?
So far, so good. Keep fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think I've heard, Mo and I are in a mastermind with a lot of investors, and I know at least one of the guys, the lender basically just changed the terms at the table. I think it was in our group. But they had a hard money lender that, they were at I think an 80 LTV, and at the closing table, they raised the rate 2 points and lowered the LTV to a 50, I believe and they kind of got blindsided. So some, it's not common in conventional lending, but with private money lending, it's different. It's unregulated. We can make our own rules based on our own risk assessment. So for those of you like with conventional buyers, don't let that freak you out. It's just there's some hard money lenders aren't sure, how to underwrite right now. Jim Forsyth, let me find you here. You always have interesting input. Let's hear what's going on in Memphis, Tennessee. All right, Jim, you're on the air. Nobody has a microphone today. What is up? So Jim said real estate, Jim's in Memphis, Tennessee, said it's real estate is an essential business and is open in Memphis, Tennessee by emergency declaration, and I think statewide, but not positive about that. We can show, but I think it's slowed down here in Memphis. Brian from Texas, let me unmute you so we can have a conversation here. All right, Brian, you should be unmuted on your side. Brian from Texas. Brian, it looks like you are unmuted. And Jim, I will mute you back. You're right. Okay, Brian had said, Mo said there was a bill in Congress to mandate RON. Is that something the feds can force on the states? I sure hope so. Mo, what's your take on that? I mean,
yeah, it's an emergency bill. So yes, they will force that in the states, but it's temporary, basically. The original plan was through April 30th. I think most states have been behaving themselves and passing RON as an emergency bill. They're not waiting for the feds, but I think that yes, the answer is yes. They're going to make it mandatory for all 50 states.
Yeah. Cool. Well, guys, I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised that more of you aren't having trouble with your closings. That's actually really good. I'm happy to hear that the state of that is good. I watch a lot of Facebook groups, and I've seen, when you're watching folks from all 50 states and groups with thousands of people, you're going to see some problems. And I have seen some people that have had problems getting deals closed, and I'm glad that our audience is rather immune to that. Kat shared, Rhonda Burton says on Facebook, I've had a closing with a jumbo loan that's on hold until hedge funds start moving again. Has anyone had these issues? So I have seen this definitely, Rhonda, in the commercial mortgage space, and it's because if you understand how the secondary mortgage market works, there was let's just call it a tumultuous end to last week in mortgage-backed securities, and the Fed had to take some emergency measures. If you've seen the movie Margin Call, that kind of it showed you what happened, what the first domino was in 2008. All that happened late last week, and so the secondary markets and the mortgage-backed security markets have kind of been on their head, flipped on their head for the last week, and that's why jumbo lenders and commercial lenders and private money lenders, like some people aren't sure how to underwrite their deals, so they have stepped away from the table. I do have another friend who was closing on $1 million primary residence, and they got to the table and the lender would not fund. There was another one in Florida. It was I guess it was a jumbo too, and they didn't fund it. I think they delayed it. I think they ultimately did close that one. But so we have seen some of that in commercial and larger loan amounts, just because they're having trouble selling those in the secondary market. Mo, I don't know if you've seen that in your area, like if you guys have had any lenders not fund. I have talked to a few people, for like I'm no more than one step removed, so it's not a story. It was, it was what actually happened to them.
So far, I have not seen anything at all. The only cancellation we've seen was as a buyer backing out of a closing, get cold feet so far.
Yeah.
But as far as lenders, so far everything's closing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, and what's interesting about that too, the reason those lenders are nervous, like normally when you see rates slam down to 0 to a quarter, you would expect you would see that come through in mortgage and residential mortgage rates. However, what happened is treasury bills took a nosedive. You saw an inverse relationship for the first time, I think one of the first times ever, between the T note and mortgage rates. So rates actually went up for the better part of a week. I think we saw them settle down a little bit later in this week. But that's so they were having to force rates up in order to get people to buy the paper on the secondary market. And it's lenders have all, their cheese has been moved literally hourly for the last 10 days. So it's a challenging environment for an underwriter taking a lot of risk. And that's why you're seeing some of that. But hopefully they can get that jumbo loan back to the table and actually get it closed now that there's some settlement in the credit markets. And I think the Fed has proven by this point that they're willing to do whatever it takes to stabilize credit markets and get us back online. Belinda says, I have a short sale underway even before the COVID-19, having long delays because I can't get a BPO done. Are others having delays or problems with BPOs or appraisals in a timely way? There has been a 2-week delay. There's certainly problems getting appraisals, Belinda. like in markets where, where like complete lockdowns have happened. The good news is a lot of states have put real estate professionals on the essential services list. So appraisers and inspectors can still get out and move around, and it's not likely an appraiser is going to bring 10 people with him. He's going to do his job and move on. So I think they're taking, they're more cautious than normal. So it's and the other thing, the reason the bigger delay with appraisers right now is when rates did correct, like most lenders just got choked with refinance applications. And we talked about this on Wednesday. I mean, a lot of the lenders I know, they're just kind of pushing the stacks of refi apps off their desk so they can move forward with purchase loans. But there's, appraisers have a heavy load on them right now because so many people rushed into refi, and it's, it's inefficient to do their job right now. So I think that's something we're all going to just have to deal with. There are, like we talked about earlier, that they're making some exceptions to relieve some of that pressure on the individual appraisers. Fannie and Freddie have made some exceptions to allow, they started moving in that direction earlier in the year or late last year, but allowing AVMs or automated valuation models or electronic appraisals. And I think that's going to relieve some of the pressure off of them. So you should see the backlog clear and get your appraisal here in not too long. All right. Anybody else have anything they would like to share? Any questions for Mo about title, closings, anything like that? Mo has dropped the bill, the federal RON bill from Senator Mark Warner is in the chat, and we'll put this stuff in the show notes, guys. He also just shared his email with you guys. So if you have any questions, anything that if you were shy today and you didn't want to come online or you didn't have a microphone, you can always reach out to Mo and he can help you. If you don't have a title company in your market that can do closings right now, reach out to Mo. He's well connected, part of a network where he can hopefully find somebody that has the tools and the capacity to keep your deals moving forward. We'll go ahead and wrap up since it doesn't look like we have any more questions. We will be Monday at noon Eastern. We'll jump back in on operations, and we're going to dig into buyers because that seems to be the biggest priority for most people right now. If you have buyers in the pipeline, let's figure out how to keep them comfortable, keep them there, and keep them moving forward. Well, we can't afford to have a market stall out right now. And every bit of momentum we can keep in the market is going to benefit everybody. So, Mo, thank you very much for being here, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Chad.
And Belinda.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Belinda had a question. She says, not for Mo. A quick clarification from you regarding calling our probate leads with ringless voicemails. Did you indicate that may be dangerous at the time due to lawyers or potential for suits? So, Belinda, I mentioned this on the mastermind call yesterday. In any recessionary period, you see a lot more litigation than you do when things are going well. And especially in this space with ringless voicemail, unless you have explicit written consent from the person you're calling, or unless you're a politician, or unless you're a nonprofit, then you are violating TCPA. Oftentimes there's not a whole lot of risk with that. But right now, you think about the attorney who has 20 staff members and they have families and he has to figure out a way to keep his business healthy and moving forward as well. So litigation attorneys are looking for future business. And if you know that you're violating TCPA and you call the wrong person and that person connects with that litigation attorney and they can drag you into a class action suit, then the risk doesn't really match the reward. So my suggestion is take a break on things like text marketing and ringless voicemail. Margie, I see your question about TCPA. So TCPA is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. It is regulated by both the FTC and the FCC. It basically says unless you have explicit written consent, you should not be texting or you should not be using ringless voicemail or robo-dialing to anyone unless you become a politician or a nonprofit, or you have an existing business relationship that has been at somewhat renewed within the last 90 days. So we did talk about that yesterday. My advice, guys, is, find someone to make the calls for you if you can't get it done. But TCPA, lawsuits have been skyrocketing anyways. And in this environment, I'm just giving you a friendly warning. You're more likely to have attorneys looking for targets than ever right now. So you've got more time. You're at home. You're in the office. Like, you should be able to get on the phone and make these calls. And if not, you call my friend. And Mo, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I mean, Daniel Ramsey is the owner of My Outdesk and also a friend of ours. And we've talked about it on calls recently. If you guys need help, if you need an ISA, Daniel Ramsey, the owner of My Outdesk, has virtual employees in the Philippines that are highly trained, highly skilled, and we can connect you with them and actually work directly with Daniel to specifically train them on the probate niche. And Mo, I know you and Daniel have done some things, and you're looking at doing some stuff in Morocco. So if you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah. I just second what you said. Highly recommend contacting Daniel, and especially you two working on like some dialogues and scripts for ISA. They do a phenomenal job.
Yeah. So if you're not getting it done, we will, we can point you in the right direction and get you a good virtual assistant hired, and I'll give you my commitment that I will either help you train them or I'll train them for you. So Doug asked about the TCPA yesterday. That is in so the conversation about TCPA was during yesterday's mastermind call. So it's I think it was it number 270, Kat. But if you look in our Facebook group, All the Leads Mastermind, the calls are archived there, or you can go to alltheleads.com/CCVA. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to let everybody get back to work. Mr. Mo, thank you very much for being our guest today. And I'll try with my partner, Jim, always closes the same way on our calls. So I want you to take one thing you learned here today, one thing that inspired you, go put it into action, and come back Monday and share your results. Thanks so much, guys, and make it a great day.